You walked into your manager's office on a Tuesday, slid a one-page resignation letter across the desk, and said you were giving 2 weeks. You were proud of it, professional, classy. You'd read somewhere that burning bridges was career suicide, so you smiled, thanked them for the opportunity, and offered to train your replacement. 3 weeks later, you watched a coworker get walked out the same door you skipped through. Same role, same tenure. The difference? They got 11 weeks of pay, plus 6 months of paid health coverage and a reference letter the company's own lawyers drafted. You got a cardboard box and a calendar invite titled offboarding. You did not lose that money because you were bad at your job. You lost it because you handed the company the one thing it wanted most, for free. A voluntary exit with zero liability attached. You signed your own pink slip and called it integrity. The moment you say, "I quit," you hand back the strongest leverage you will ever hold over the people who employ you, the power to force them to own your exit. You convert yourself from a problem they must manage into a problem that solved itself, and they will thank you right up until the door clicks shut behind you. Most people do not get fired badly, they quit badly. They torch tens of thousands of dollars on the way out because they confuse dignity with strategy. So be clear about what this is. Quitting is not surrender. It is the single most important business negotiation of your career, and the system is built to make sure you lose it before you know it started. Kill the first fantasy. Severance is not owed to you. No federal law requires a company to pay you a single dollar when you leave unless a written contract or formal policy promises it. 49 states run on at-will employment, meaning they can end the relationship for almost any reason or none at all, and so can you. Montana is the lone real exception, and unless you work there, the law is not writing in to save you. So if severance is not a right, what is it? It is a bribe with better branding. When a company hands you a severance check, it is not being generous. It is buying something specific, your silence and your signature. Every dollar in that agreement pays for a release of claims, a promise not to sue them for anything that already happened, to stay silent about the deal, and to never tell the next jury what went on inside that building. That is the trade, money for your right to make their lives expensive. Behind the smile, they are calculating the cheapest amount that will make you sign and disappear without a fight. But the paperwork is built to make you forget that a few rights cannot be sold at any price. No release can stop you from filing a charge with the EEOC or a state agency, or from cooperating with its investigation. It generally cannot erase separate rights like filing for unemployment, workers' compensation, or benefits already vested in your name. You can give up the right to collect a personal check on those claims. You cannot give up the right to file them. Any clause that pretends otherwise is a red flag and should be reviewed before you sign. A 2026 severance package is a number on a spreadsheet, and it has almost nothing to do with fairness. The bigger the risk you can credibly create, the bigger the check. Many companies offer some severance, but far fewer lock the amount into a written policy, which means the number in front of you is usually discretionary, invented for your situation, and they are praying you do not know it is negotiable. Leverage is not found at the exit. You build it months before you plan to walk, while they still think you are happy. And this is why I created the Office Politics Survival Guide and the companion workbook and toolkit. Because by the time you are sitting in the exit meeting, it is already late. The real work is learning how to read the room, protect your reputation, document the right things, and stop being the easiest person in the building to use. The full guide and workbook are linked in the description. Start with documentation, because memory is worthless and paper is power. The day a manager says something that smells like discrimination, retaliation, or a promise they never mean to keep, you write it down. Date, time, who was in the room, the exact words. You keep what you are lawfully entitled to hold, your own notes, offer letters, written policies, pay records, and performance reviews, especially the glowing ones. You do not steal confidential files or forward client data on the way out, because that hands them a clean reason to fire you for cause. The company's favorite trick is to manufacture a paper trail of underperformance the moment you become inconvenient, and a file full of exceeds expectations ratings is the most expensive document in the building. Next, learn to recognize a legal claim when it is sitting in your lap because most people walk past a six-figure lawsuit without noticing. Written up or pushed out after you reported harassment, that is potential retaliation. After you took medical leave, that can be an FMLA violation. Did decades of good reviews suddenly stop mattering the year you turned 40? That is the shape of age discrimination. You do not need to win in court. You need a real claim, truthful and documented, credible enough that the company's lawyers would rather pay you to make it vanish than explain it to a judge. A plausible claim is the most powerful card in this game. Then line up your external options before you need them. Get the other offer. Someone with somewhere to go negotiates from a different place than someone terrified of an empty calendar, and they can smell that fear on you. Finally, get honest about your true value. Not what you feel you are worth, but what you cost them to replace. A specialized skill, a role that took a year to fill, relationships that walk out the door with you, years of tenure stacked on top. The more catastrophic your absence, the more they will pay to make your exit painless for them. Now the playbook. Phase 1. Do not resign voluntarily. Burn this into your skull. If severance is the goal, quitting is the worst move you can make because voluntary resignation usually kills your severance leverage and can wreck your unemployment eligibility, depending on your state and whether you had legally recognized good cause to walk. Some managers will make your life miserable on purpose to bait you into quitting. When the conditions get so intolerable that the law will treat your resignation as a firing, that has a name. Constructive discharge. It is a high bar and hard to prove, so do not assume it casually, but it exists, and it is the exact reason they would rather you jump than be seen pushing you. So make them own the decision. If they want you gone, they terminate you, on paper, with a reason. The instant they do, the leverage flips, because now they hold the liability, and severance becomes the price of buying it back. Phase 2. Understand the clock. If you are 40 or older and the agreement asks you to waive age discrimination claims, which almost all of them do, federal law under the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act forces the company to give you at least 21 days to review it before signing and 7 days to revoke after you sign. In a group layoff, that window expands to 45 days, and they must legally hand you a list showing the job titles and ages of everyone cut and everyone spared. Read that list like a detective. If everyone they cut is over 50 and everyone they kept is under 35, you are not holding a severance agreement. You are holding evidence. "We need this signed by Friday" is pressure, not law. And if this is a mass layoff, ask whether the Federal WARN Act applies. Employers of 100 or more usually owe 60 days of advance notice before a large layoff or closing, and if they skipped it, they can owe you up to 60 days of back pay and benefits. Sometimes what they call severance is really notice pay they already owed you, dressed up as a gift. Phase 3. Know what is actually on the table in 2026, because it is far more than the cash. The base payment runs 1 to 4 weeks per year of service, and even that is negotiable. Beyond it sits a prorated bonus or unpaid commission they hope you forget to ask for. There is continued health coverage, often months of paid COBRA, which is real money the moment you price an individual plan. In tech, there is accelerated vesting of RSUs you would otherwise forfeit. There is your reference language in writing, so a future employer hears the version you negotiated and not whatever a bitter manager improvises. There is a mutual non-disparagement clause, an outplacement budget, and your non-compete. The biggest myth working professionals still believe. You probably heard the FTC banned non-competes. It tried. The agency announced a nationwide ban in 2024. A federal judge in Texas struck it down before it ever took effect. The FTC dropped its appeal in 2025, and by 2026, the rule was gone from the federal code. So the federal shield you think protects you does not exist. Your non-compete lives or dies under state law, your role, your pay, and how the clause is written. Some states largely ban them or restrict them heavily, while others still enforce them depending on the role, pay level, and wording. Several states still enforce them more aggressively than workers expect. But employers know these clauses are vulnerable and expensive to litigate, and regulators are now hunting the overbroad ones case by case. That makes a written release from your non-compete one of the most valuable concessions you can extract, and one they give up far more easily than cash. Phase 4. The tactics that move the number. Anchor high. Treat their first offer as the floor, never the ceiling, and counter well above it, because the opening number was built to be beaten and they expect a counter. Then trade. Accept slightly less cash for a longer COBRA runway and stronger reference language, because the cash gets taxed and spent and the protections outlast it. Put your leverage on the table without theatrics and name the claim you could credibly file. Then bring a lawyer, or at least the credible threat of one. The moment an employment attorney's name lands on your reply, their cheap, frictionless exit becomes a potential legal file. Many lawyers review these agreements for a flat fee, a rounding error against what a good one adds to your payout. And the first offer is almost never the final offer. There is no guaranteed multiplier and no magic percentage, but the people who counter, especially with tenure, documentation, unpaid compensation, or a credible claim behind them, routinely walk away with far more than they were first handed. A mid-level employee given 8 weeks and a deadline who instead refuses, lawyers up, and points to a documented retaliation timeline does not leave with 8 weeks. They leave with months of pay, paid health coverage, and a reference the company was forced to write in their favor. The one who signs on Friday leaves with the bare minimum and a thank you note. Before you sign, learn to read the traps, because this is a contract their lawyers wrote to protect them, not you. Every clause is doing a job, and several are doing it to you. The first trap is the overly broad release of claims. The standard version asks you to waive every legal right you have ever had against the company, known and unknown. If you hold a live claim worth real money, you may be signing it away for pennies on the dollar, which is exactly the point. Sometimes the right move is to carve specific claims out of the release before you agree to a word of it. The second trap is the one-sided non-disparagement clause. They want a contract that forbids you from ever saying anything negative about them, while leaving themselves free to trash you to every recruiter who calls. Push for mutual. If your mouth is going to be legally sealed, so is theirs, in writing. The third trap is a non-compete you should not be bound to, especially if you are not a senior executive or you are in a state that limits them. Do not assume it is enforceable just because it is printed on the page. They are counting on your fear to do the job the law no longer will. The fourth trap is language that recharacterizes your exit as a voluntary resignation or has you promise not to seek unemployment. Your unemployment eligibility is mostly not theirs to sign away, but a clause that gets you to call your firing a mutual separation can sabotage the claim later. Read for it, strike it. And the most dangerous trap of all is a confidentiality clause built to bury illegal conduct. If the agreement tries to gag you about discrimination, harassment, or other law-breaking you witnessed, that is not boilerplate. That is a company paying for your silence about something it is genuinely afraid of, and it should make you ask for far more than they put in front of you. There is no perfect outcome here, which is exactly why the motivational crowd never mentions it. There is no clean win where you walk out fully protected and the company humbled behind you. That fantasy does not exist. What exists is damage reduction, and the people who do this well are not chasing justice. They are the ones who calmly minimize how much the system takes from them on the way out. So play it cold. Before any separation conversation, you say less, not more. You do not vent, and you do not give them a single quote they can later use to argue you quit voluntarily. You ask one question and then you stop. Is this a termination? And what is the separation package? Then you let the silence sit, because the person who speaks first usually loses, and it does not have to be you. When they hand you the agreement, you do not sign it in the room. You take it home, use your full legal review period, and have someone qualified read every line. Escalation is not a tantrum. It is a calm, written response, ideally with a lawyer's name attached, laying out what you want and why refusing you costs them more than agreeing. And to be plain about it, none of this is legal advice, and a video is not your lawyer. The law turns on your state and your exact facts, so the only opinion that actually protects you is one from an attorney you have paid to read your case. And think past the check. Get the reference language in writing so it cannot evaporate later, and confirm what the company will say to verify your employment, because "we only confirm dates in title" is a sentence you want on paper. Keep copies of everything before your access is cut, which can happen the same hour they let you go. The second you are out, you stop being a person to them. You are a closed file, and a closed file has no leverage. Everything you are going to get, you get before the door shuts, not after. The system is not broken. Strip away the comfort and it is working exactly as designed, built by people who employ lawyers to make sure that when you leave cheap. Every instinct it trained into you: be grateful, be professional, do not make waves, give 2 weeks and a smile, exists to make your departure painless for them and expensive for you. Your manager is not your friend, and HR is not neutral. The severance offer slid across the table is not a gift. It is the lowest number they think you will accept without a fight. You will not get what you deserve. Nobody does. You will get what you negotiate, and not $1 more. So the only question that matters on your way out is whether you understood the game while you still held cards to play, or whether you handed them a frictionless exit, said thank you, and called your own surrender good manners. Decide which one you are before you ever walk into that room.